Oh no, where'd it go? My desktop's a mess. There it is. Okay. I will screen share this. And if you would like to unmute, talk through it, please just feel free to go ahead and get started. Or else, if you have anything to pop in the chat instead, you're welcome to do that. That should be coming through.
Yeah, it's not really good.
No, I love it.
Just in the middle, just had the gates there, and then the lines going from the top to the down to the gate, kind of like chains, and then in the middle beside it there, in like the rectangular thing with the braziers, as you call them, with fire. Below that is like a thing you pull on to open the gate after you do the level. And then on the left side there, the small squares you see at the bottom. Yeah, that's better. The small square, like rectangular things that I just kind of thought they would be like sculptures like in the wall, kinda. And then above that, as you see on the far right, I kind of did like a closer look from above. The line going through above it is kind of like seats for where like the demons could like watch you fight and stuff. And then at the top, I kind of did like spikes so people couldn't get out of the thing. And then like the squiggly lines in the middle were kind of like fire pits or something for so you had to like fight around them so you can't go in. Basically, that's basically what I can think of things, but I just can't draw them good. So that's basically what I did.
Excellent. That's
Just
really
not
good. Oh God, words, this heat. That's fantastic. I love the idea of the statues looking down and such. But I shall let Lakin give some feedback.
okay.
Yeah, no worries. So overall, I'm just glad that you took like the environment option to be honest, because honestly, like doing environments is really difficult. So when you say like, oh, like I can't draw and stuff, it's fine. Like environments are just generally harder to draw as well. I love how you've considered things like sort of the level design, right, with like the architecture and stuff, and you're thinking about like smaller assets like the statues in the wall, as Jess mentioned before, and just like key areas like the fire pit and stuff. Like I know you're kind of like, oh, it's not that good and stuff, but it's not necessarily how, good something is right now. We're trying to think like designers, right? So the fact that you thought out this environment and you thought out the key areas and you thought out like how everything kind of fits together nicely, right? Like you're envisioning what this could be as a level, right? And you are thinking of not only just the form of the environment, but also the function, right? Because you mentioned like the spikes and stuff to stop like the player getting out and like seats for like the demons to watch and things. So you're already kind of incorporating some environmental storytelling in it, right? So all this is like key for a starting point for developing sort of environment designs, right? So I wouldn't let anything like from this discourage you from taking it further. Like you're doing everything right, basically, is what I'm saying, and you're thinking it through, and that's what I want to see. I want to see that like intention behind the design. So yeah, you should be really proud of yourself for doing this, and I like the idea. Like I kind of just want to. If like if I was to take this further, right, I just kind of think about, okay, like this seems like an arena, right? So who's the guy we're fighting, with like the spire pit? Is it like a giant magma sort of boss character, or maybe it's like the owner of the sort of Colosseum style environment, right? Like there's so many ways you can add to it, and that's like what the main thing is about, right? It's like we build something and then we build upon it and give it a story and give it more meaning. So yeah, overall, great attempt. I love it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Huge well done. Lovely. Now I shall share our next one. While I'm doing that, I see a couple more names in the Zoom call. So if you have any stuff for sharing for this project, please let me know in the chat or drop me a DM and I will call you forth. So this project was made by Rihanna, who, like I said, sadly cannot join us tonight, but wanted to share what she'd made. So Takashi Chihara, Master Chef slash Yakuza. Set in 1980s Japan, we follow Takashi Chihara, apologies, a longtime high-ranking member of the Yakuza. In order to pay off a debt without losing his life, Takashi has been tasked with the management of a syndicate-run restaurant due to his culinary expertise, while simultaneously ensuring the surrounding area stays crime-free to attract more customers to the establishment. Gameplay vision, cooking. Players will be tasked with time management-based gameplay around cooking, using the correct ingredients, cook the food the correct way within the correct amount of time, and serve it to your customers. Management. Players will manage their restaurants, ensuring stock levels are maintained, and updating their menu to include new items whenever higher-tier ingredients are unlocked. Action. Throughout certain portions of the game, players will be tasked with cleaning the area surrounding the restaurant. This includes combat with enemy crime syndicates and specific tasks given by higher-ups or customers. Locations. Set in 1980s Japan, the surrounding area reflects the aesthetics of the time. A lot of inspiration for the surrounding area comes from Yakuza 0, a game focused on a similar theme within Japan. Restaurant. Being one of the primary game locations, the restaurant is modeled after hole-in-the-wall style Japanese restaurants. And I'll let this slide linger for the images a moment. Takashi. Cold, tough exterior with a hidden passion for cooking. Takashi's character takes a light-hearted approach to a hardened Yakuza member. Inspiration taken from Way of the House Husband, another character with a tough exterior but a softer personality. I love that reference image of the cat. Excellent. And that is Rihanna's presentation. She did say that she wasn't able to 100% complete it, but did want to share the mood boards she'd been able to come up with.
Yeah, I'll just get right into it. So obviously, yeah, like you said, it wasn't sort of completed, but that's fine because what you've put so far, like for the project, is a great start. And this is great with feedback because I can kind of give you how to kind of get the mood boards and the sort of references like down. So before you like start designing the character, right? So first of all, I love the references you put for it. Like I love the choice and the idea is really cute and playful. And I can tell sort of, as you say, like with the Yakuza being the main inspiration, you've kind of analyzed what makes that kind of game series like charming, right? And it is the sort of tough exterior with like the silly side quests that you do and stuff. Like it fits right into a Yakuza game, right? Like I could see Kiryu like kind of cooking and stuff on the side while also fighting crime and stuff. But in general, the setting, I love how you've picked a specific time period and a specific area, right? So the main thing that I would use as take us further is because I'm a big fan of Yakuza myself as well. Like I love the game series, but the main sort of location that it's based off is an actual area in Japan called Kamurocho. So if you want to take this further, like with the character and stuff and like the environment, depending on what you want to do, I would say definitely look into Kamurocho specifically because they based it one to one off that area. So then you can get an idea of like how the people dressed, how the places looked, other things like architecture inspiration, right? And it's just a great starting point because there's a lot of history that goes in that area, right? It's like almost like the sort of entertainment district of Japan, especially in the 80s at that time, right? So there's a lot you can really do with it. Like, for example, maybe you could use it to enhance the story. Like maybe the chef, you start off like with no restaurant, right? So you're just kind of selling sort of stuff on the side, and then you can like upgrade and you go from being sort of like a vendor on the outskirts to like your own restaurant by the end of the game. So yeah, there's a lot of like more things you can use to build upon it. And so yeah, just looking at that real world reference. I also love how you kind of laid out the gameplay vision as well, because as you say, like the main thing is the cooking and the management and sort of like the action, that like gameplay loop. It's good to see. So that can kind of help as well visualize what type of assets would need to be developed. Like for example, I I just keep thinking about, maybe because I'm hungry right now, but like what type of food would he be cooking, right? So that'd be a cool thing to explore. And then that's where you could really go into sort of like the history of that specific area, right? Because I'm sure there's like certain restaurants and things or certain like Camarucho sort of based delicacies, right, that you could like reference in your own design, right? Or just look at like other similar areas in Japan with their own like unique twist, because in different regions, there's different like, well, they speak different ways as well in different regions, like with the language. So I'm sure they cook things slightly different as well, like certain methods. Like you could really go really nerdy with it basically. Like it's a great starting point, just kind of hone in and really like pick elements from real world things that make those parts unique in your design. But yeah, overall, great start, and I look forward to seeing it. To be honest, it sounds like a really cute idea, like a Master Chef. So yeah.
Absolutely. It sounds like a really cool idea. Lovely. That takes us through the end of our presentations. However, I do have a kind of like couple of follow-on questions for you, Lakin. First of all, from the two presentations we've seen, what kind of ways would people need to advance it if they were turning it into a sort of full design doc, so to speak, just out of curiosity?
So the main thing would be just kind of like honing down on the references, as in like being really specific, right? So maybe initially with mood boards, it's like you have a certain time period in mind, but it's like being specific and based off like certain locations or certain like characters, right? So when I mean certain characters, I mean like for example, if you're making like a knight character, it's not necessarily just picking knights that exist in media already and going, oh, like we're going to base off let's say Artorias from Dark Souls or something, right? It's like, okay, but what makes him Artorias? Like, is it what type of style armor has he got? From what century is it? Because it's like Gothic, right? So Gothic armor is different to say like Renaissance armor, right? There's like all these different like things that make a certain element stand out more. So it's like putting that little bit extra like depth in the research. And then when you have sort of like all that sort of ready, then you go into the experimental like design phase where it's just a lot of like iteration and stuff, right? It's honestly just start like sketching out ideas, start getting it down. Even if you're not an artist yourself, it's just good to sketch down what ideas you have in mind. And from there, once you kind of have basically everything ready, like what the sort of vision of the game's going to be, then I would say the next thing to do is start locking down what actually needs to be designed. So obviously, let's say like a platformer, right? You're going to need a character, you're going to need a few enemies, you're going to need maybe a boss, and then you're going to need like level design, like platforms, items, and stuff like that. So if you have like a set checklist, that makes it easier to sort of like as a concept artist to know what needs to be designed versus just like kind of coming up with ideas, but nothing's really getting finalized, right? Because once you have something to refer to, then you can kind of go, okay, main character designed, that's done. Okay, this level is designed, that's done. What's in this level? Okay, we need platforms, maybe a background, maybe like a door design, maybe a chest design. Again, it really depends what type of game you're making and stuff, and genre. So I say again, that checklist is the main vital thing, like knowing what you need to design, because you might just end up coming up with all these ideas and then none of it actually is needed for your project. So yeah, that's kind of like the advice I give if you to take it further in the concept art sense.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the chat? Because I don't want to hog up all of the time. And while people are potentially kind of typing or thinking up anything as well, are there any specific no good Lord, words. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Are there any potentially sort of non-obvious directions people may want to think about continue? Oh, God. So the obvious one, as you said, is just kind of advancing and going into more depths and details. But are there any other design elements people may want to consider looking at outside of the ones they've touched on for their projects? There we go. I found the words.
Um, when you mean design elements, it's like sort of just other things to consider when making like designs for your concept art and game and stuff.
Yeah, any kind of things like is it worth playing around with other color palettes people have made, for
Oh, I
example,
see.
or things like that?
Okay. Yeah, that's quite an easy one to answer because the one that gets overlooked a lot, which I sometimes do myself, is two things. It's the style of the game and the readability. So these kind of go in tandem because, for example, if you're making like a game that's a top-down sort of like shooter, right? Um, you don't need to design underneath the ship if it was like a ship, right? You're like piloting in like a top-down shooter. Like you wouldn't have to know what the spaceship looks like underneath because we're only seeing the top of the ship, right? And that works for like side scrolls as well, right? Like if it's a 2D game, you don't need to design environment in a 3D sense, right? Because everything's kind of flatter. So when it comes to style and stuff, things to consider is like detail as well. So if you're making something that's like, let's say Kirby, right, super simple and cute, then when it comes to design, then you would avoid things that are like overly detailed, right? And this kind of also corresponds with complexity. So, for example, if you're making like a pixel art game, or like you're doing the animations by hand, or like depending on how you're making these assets, you might want to consider as well what's like possible and what's going to just eat up time. So, for example, if you're making like a walk animation, you probably want the character design to be really simple and easy to do. Because if the character is like super complex, like let's say like a Castlevania character, right? Like the pixel art was really detailed in that, it's going to take a lot of time to make one walk cycle for one character from that game versus a walk cycle of Kirby, right? It's like night and day in terms of how much work you'd have to do. So thinking as well like how certain design elements can influence production time as well. So especially in the indie scene, we tend to lean towards stylized because of this, because making a hyper realistic game is really expensive and time consuming, right? And it's a lot of polygons. But so a lot of indie games tend to be more simpler in that sense. But that's also not just because of the stylistic choice, but because of the production. Like it is quicker and easier to make something that's more like simpler in design. And then I mentioned readability, and that's just a general one that gets overlooked, as in like, say like you're designing an item you pick up, like for example, like trying to think now, Binding of Isaac or something, right? Like that's a roguelike game. All the items are like really readable, and you can distinguish what items are there versus what items are like, or what assets are enemies and stuff, right? So again, it's that sense of readability, is in you can spend ages designing something in isolation, like if you're designing a sword or something, but when you put that sword in the game, does it still read like a sword, or does it kind of blend into the background, or does it like not read the way it should? Like even really simple things like, for example, if you're making a door in a game, how do I know which door is a door that I can open and interact with versus a door that's like a backdrop, right? Or a door that's locked versus a door that's open and accessible. And it's just things like that that sometimes gets overlooked and could confuse players. So I think before you even start designing stuff is to also ask those questions like, what is the role of this design in a game design sense, right? Is this something that the player can interact with? Is this something that the player can't? Is this something that will hurt the player? Is this something that will help the player, right? Like kind of a controversial take on the whole yellow painting gaming, right, where it helps the player like lead to areas. But sometimes it can be a genuine justified like method, right? Because it's all context. Like if it's in a paint factory, that makes sense. But if it's in like the sewers, it doesn't really make sense. Like how did that paint get there, right? um, so again, it's just thinking about how these designs fit in the environment, how they tell you what you need to, not only in terms of story and how cool it looks, but also in terms of gameplay. Because the main thing is that we want the player to have an easy time playing the game. We don't want them to get confused and go, "What is this?" Unless that is the intention. So yeah, sounds a bit like hypocritical, but yeah, it generally depends on the intention of what this thing is. If we're supposed to look at it and go, "What the hell is this?" then that's we should make it like really hard to distinguish. But if it's something that's like, yeah, this is an enemy that will hit you, then you got to make it really obvious in the design, right? Can't make it look friendly or make it look like, um, I don't know, like an NPC or something, and someone's like, "Oh, I didn't know that was supposed to hit me," and then they have a bad experience and they go, "This game's stupid because it didn't tell me," So yeah, to simplify it all, readability. Make sure you know why this thing is here and what it's supposed to do, and make sure you keep answering yourself answering that question as you're making it. Because if it starts to stray away, then pull it back. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lakin. for joining us tonight and for giving your feedback and for answering my very poorly word vomited questions. It's been
okay.
wonderful. Oh, excellent. Well, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, Lakin. We will say goodbye to you now.
Okay.
But reminder to anyone who has maybe dipped their toes in art and is wishing to continue with more, that we do have our Tuesday art skill builders. But otherwise, thank you so much again, Lakin, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
No worries. I hope anyone's like come see the skill builder. I will say to you guys will know first. Next week we are doing portraits, like painting stylized faces and stuff. So if you're interested in that, like feel free to come along. And also, no worries, Raymond. I'm glad the feedback was helpful for you. So yeah, but I'll catch you guys later. Won't keep you any longer. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. Bye now.
You too. Goodbye for now. Lovely. Well, we will take a little bit of a break as our next guest speaker doesn't arrive until 7. So please do stay in the Zoom, but feel free to step away, go grab yourself a drink. I don't know, I was going to say a smoke break, but I can't imagine anyone wanting anything warm anywhere near them in this weather. But we will be back at 7 to talk community management. I will leave the Zoom open. And I will see you then nice and on the dot so we can meet Karis Reed. See you soon, everyone. And well done again for your projects. Some very cool and very interesting ideas there.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you.
See you soon.